Hello and welcome to the Rev It Up podcast, helping entrepreneurs fill up their tanks, crank up the RPMs, and put the pedal to the metal until they cross that finish line. Hello, I'm Jess Tiffany. Ready, set, go. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. We're glad to be here today. I have a very exciting person I want to introduce you to, Bill Carmody. And he's just absolutely amazing person. He's been at TEDx. I know he's met Tony Robbins. He's got all kinds of great things going, executive coaching, and has just a huge, stellar background. And give a little bit more about that. But Bill, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your company and where to find you?
Sure. Thanks, Jess. So yes, Bill Carmody. My website is billcarmody.com. I also just published a book, The 3 Rules of Marriage, which is 3rulesofmarriage.com. And I'm excited to dive into that with you a little bit today. And of course on LinkedIn, as I know it's very near and dear to your heart, I've spent a lot of time building my LinkedIn profile and getting it to exactly where I want it to be. Used it for social selling and the whole nine. So there's lots of places to connect.
Awesome. Well, exciting. So I saw you were on the Forbes Council. Could you tell a little bit about that and your experience with that and how it's going?
Yeah, so I started out actually on Inc. before I went to Forbes.
Okay.
For about 4 years, I was a contributing writer for Inc. And that came as an outcrop of being one of the Inc. 5000 winners 2 years in a row. And I was asked to then write about that for entrepreneurial work. And so I wrote 350 articles on Inc.com, which is really like my foundation. Wow. And then they changed it up. They shuffled a lot of people around, and I didn't make the cut when they did their revamp of everything. So it's like, all right, well, I'll try my hand at Forbes. And it was a different experience, and I did it for about a year. It was fine. It was just a very, very different approach than what I had done at Inc. So I really just did about 12 articles on Forbes, and I enjoyed the process while I was there, but it was not something I wanted to go as deep as I had with Inc.
Yeah. Wow. That's very cool. Yeah. It's a great outlet to have access to, though, to be able to get the words out. And
absolutely.
Very cool. I had a chance to write for Huffington Post for a little bit, but then they changed that, and then a few others, but nothing quite as exciting as Forbes yet. So.
Well, it's one of those Wild West things. I think, what was really great, I really enjoyed the process of writing for Inc. I really did. It was great. And I actually had quite a bit of really powerful access. And what I mean by that is that there was a lot of conferences that wanted to have Inc. represented. And even though I was very clear that I was a contributing writer, wasn't an editor, wasn't on staff, any of that stuff, it still didn't matter. They wanted to have some coverage from the Inc.com. And so I got to go to a lot of cool conferences, got to meet a lot of really great people. And I would say that it was really healthy for building my own brand and reputation, because I was able to give so much to so many people. It helped build me up as somebody who I could be both as an authority and also someone else that could really support getting the word out when somebody was trying to promote whatever product or service they were trying to talk about. Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool.
And how long have you been doing the executive coaching and some of the stuff you're doing?
Yeah, so I built and exited 2 multi-million-dollar companies, and my second one was in 2017. And when I left TrayPoint, it was really for an opportunity to serve people as opposed to brands. I had for 25 years, I worked with some of the best Fortune 100 company brands out there. I loved it. It was great. But what I was finding is that I cared more about my clients than I did about the companies they represented. And so when I switched to coaching, it was so that I could really focus on people as opposed to brands. And that really changed everything for me, because when I really connect with one person, I feel like when that breakthrough occurs, it is so profound, both for the individual who I'm coaching, but also the overall experience of what it's like to be coached or to be in that environment where there's a blind spot that gets revealed and an opportunity to make some huge shift in a person's life. There's nothing more fulfilling like that for me,
Okay. Wow. Very cool. And so can you tell me a little bit about the process from you had that company and then you did the exit? And I'm working with an influencer named Corey Warfield. I don't know if you've heard of him on LinkedIn, but we're kind of we're launching some stuff. But anyway, I was kind of curious how you went from, getting started there and then through the process to the exit strategy. Just some couple tips maybe along the journey or something.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, what was really interesting was I started out because I just wanted to bootstrap my own company, and I really did everything I could to avoid going after money. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that most entrepreneurs make is they chase cash. So what I mean by that is that they go after outside funding, they find investors too early, they get to their eyeballs in debt, and I think all of those things can be really problematic because you then don't have the flexibility or freedom to build the kind of company you went out to build in the first place. So I'm a much bigger fan of being able to connect with client side funding, which is to say, build some incredible opportunities for your clients and have them fund your business. So that was the secret of both of the companies that I built and exited, was to really come up with a core foundation of key clients that then I was able to build the entire company around based on the needs of those clients. And when you do it that way, then you're completely independent. You don't have to have a board of directors. You don't have to answer to private equity or any type of outside capital. And that gives you the complete and utter freedom to build your business until you're ready to be done or exit. And at that point, then when you're pursuing an opportunity to have a connection with a private equity firm or with another company that wants to buy you, everything's clean. You have a clean balance sheet, you have a clean business, you have everything that's been structured. And I found hiring an advisor was really a powerful part of the process to really clean up my act, to make sure that I had the right accounting software set up the right way. So, I mean, most people start out on QuickBooks, and then you find as you grow and you become a multi-million-dollar company, you really need to go into Sage or other accounting software, and you want to sort of look at what NetSuite or others that basically provide you with foundational platforms that allow you to look clean and interesting to the company that wants to acquire you. So simple things like that as an entrepreneur, you're not going to really know because it's not your focus unless you've hired a really powerful CFO who already knows all this stuff. They're going to take you down that path. Those are some of the things that will allow you to become more attractive, and having an outside advisor who's really helping you, guide you through the process, will help make sure that you are finding multiple suitors that could then buy you. And I think that was also another part of that, was to make sure that you have set yourself up for success. Yeah.
So kind of like in real estate, when you try to get multiple offers,
That's right.
house, kind of that same idea.
Yeah, think about it. If you only had one offer on your house, you're not going to get the best offer. You're going to have basically whatever the market would demand in that particular person's situation. So if you're able to market your own company and have multiple people looking at bidding you, et cetera, now you have an opportunity to run up what it is that you're selling your company for. And then you have a better opportunity to dictate some of the terms, because if you don't have that, then you're really beholden to the person who's buying your company.
Okay. I love it. And then, so how did you go from, anyway, your book is on the three
rules of marriage. Yeah.
And how did you get from your other books into that one?
Yeah. So thank you for that. That's a great question. So what I was finding in my coaching was that over 50% of marriages, this is statistically accurate, that over 50% of marriages will end in divorce. And so I was finding a lot of the executives that I was coaching were having a lot of challenges in their marriage, or were recently going through a divorce or a breakup. And it was hugely distracting on the business. So initially, it wasn't me going in for relationship coaching. It was the fact that it just kept coming up. And we start to realize when you're coaching your client, you're thinking about all the things that are impacting them, their family, their financial situation. What do they do if they're spiritual at all, like what they're doing for any type of spirituality components, friendships. I mean, there's so many things that we're multi-complex beings. And so the work that we're doing in the company is being impacted by all of those things. So when you bring that all together, what I was finding was that I was lucky enough that my father-in-law gave me the 3 rules of marriage before I married his daughter. And the reason I'd asked for it, I'd solicited the advice. My parents were both divorced when I was 12 years old. And so I looked at them, and they were 40 at the time, they were 45 years married, and they were acting like newlyweds, patting each other on the butt. It was just crazy, right? And I'd never seen anything like it. And now they're over 65 years married, and they're 86 and 87 years old. It's just crazy, but they're still as blissfully happy in their marriage as they were when we first got married. So they were doing something right. And so what I did is I asked him, what's the secret? And he said, I've got 3 rules. And I said, hold on, let me get a pen. So I wrote this down. And they're very simple conceptually and very profound to implement. So the first rule is don't keep score. And again, all of these can be applied to the rules in business too, like your partnerships in business, your relationships with your clients and your customers, all the same thing. You don't keep score means you don't drag the history into the conversation. So if I'm having a conflict with a business partner or one of my employees, if I'm focusing on everything they've ever done wrong, there's no chance for there ever to be a successful outcome in that conversation. They're only going to be made to feel dumb or wrong or bad. And ultimately, there's no positivity or productivity that's going to come out of that conversation. So if you focus on not keeping score, you're focusing on what's happening in the moment. And then once you've adjusted it, you let it go. Now, that doesn't mean you're ignoring a pattern. If there's a pattern there, then you can have a conversation with about what you're seeing and experiencing. But even then, that's the moment you're seeing this, that you're seeing something that's starting to develop and something to keep an eye on. But if you're always focusing on everything someone's ever done, then they can never win with you. So that's the same thing in your marriage. If you're keeping score with your spouse, there's no chance that they're ever going to be able to resolve whatever the issue is at hand. You're going to be talking about the history of everything that happened up to that moment.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a big challenge. My wife's got a particularly good memory, so.
Yes, that's the other part. Guys don't have a chance when it comes to that. Women tend to have a much better memory of remembering all the things that ever happened. And it's an unfair fight because guys just typically don't keep that in retention anyway. So even if you were to keep score, it's a totally unfair fight. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work for either one of us,
Exactly. And what was rule 2 then?
Rule number 2 is it's more important to say, I appreciate you than I love you. And one of the reasons why that's so important is that you can be mad at your spouse and still love them, right? You can be angry at them and still love them. And so the thing about love, though, is it's very general. When I say I love you, it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But when I say I appreciate you, it's usually very specific. I appreciate you taking out the garbage. I appreciate you doing the laundry. I appreciate you doing the dishes. I appreciate you coming home early from work to take care of whatever problem is that I've asked you to come home for, right? All of those things. The appreciation is specific and it makes you feel appreciated. So as a person in the partnership, it feels like it's building you up. Same thing in work. You think about your employees when you tell them specifically, I appreciate how you handled that call or how you dealt with that client or how you mentored this other employee. The appreciation is specific and they really feel good about the relationship and the compliment that they're receiving.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you telling me that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jess.
Very cool.
And the last one is don't go to bed angry. And so this one's very simple, but the idea is if you go to bed angry, you wake up angry and you start your day from the previous day before you. So you're sort of bringing all of those emotions forward. So the same thing here is that when you clear yourself out before you go to bed, you're starting over fresh the next morning. So that means you have to have a decision. Is it important enough? Is the argument important enough to stay up and have a fight or a conversation about it? Or can you let it go? And if you do let it go, then that's really it. When your head hits the pillow, it's over, it's done. Because see rule number 1, you can't get up in the morning and keep on to that score.
Right.
So in work, it's the same thing, is that, essentially when you want to leave the office, you want to be able to have closure. And so part of this is to make sure if there's unresolved conflict, to do your best to resolve the conflict in the day that it's happening so that it doesn't drag out. And especially if it's going back and forth on email where there's no emotion and there's all kinds of, people are getting frustrated and bent around, whatever the issue is. If there's a way for you to pick up the phone and resolve a conflict, it's going to make you feel so much better to start your day and fresh the next day.
Okay. And then in case that the conflict isn't able to be resolved that day, let's say you're probably going to need to fire an employee or something like that, or, there's some sort of disciplinary action that has to come along with that. A good way to, lead that from, perhaps you have to bring in a boss or somebody, somebody like a senior person into the mix. Is there kind of a process?
Yeah. In that particular case, you're not delaying it. What you're doing is you are clear that this a shift needs to happen. And so from that perspective, you're still not going to bed angry, because essentially what you're doing is you're putting those wheels in motion. You're having a conversation with the head of HR, you're having a conversation with the boss, you're having a conversation with whoever else needs to be involved. Maybe you called the lawyer to make sure you have severance papers drawn up or packages or whatnot, and you go through that. And those are your precautions. I mean, I've had many a conversation with an employee where it wasn't like I was ready to fire them. I was ready to sort of get through it, and I've had all my ducks in a row, but we were able to work it out. And so I never had to pull out that file with all the information and the next steps, because we were able to get the resolution on the issue. But I was prepared to let them go if we really weren't able to get to that resolution.
Okay.
And so there is a distinction between preparation and execution. And so what you're speaking into is preparation, and that is exactly right. Like, you want to be prepared to take the right actions. And so if that means you're pushing it off a day or two or even a week, you're still, you've put those plans in motion, and you're not unresolved hanging out and taking up a lot of your brain space.
Very cool. And where's the best place to get a hold of your book?
Yeah, so 3rulesofmarriage.com, THREE. So spell it out, 3rulesofmarriage.com. And there you're going to get the first 2 chapters totally for free, as well as a complimentary workbook. So we actually just released the audiobook too. So you'll see that the actual, the hard copy as well as paperback editions are on Amazon, as is the audiobook. So all available there. And that's why we have the workbook, so that you don't have to, if you're on the Audible version, you can basically do that. Or if you don't want to just, write in your book.
So is the workbook like something you purchase extra, or is it like a download?
It's free. It's totally free. So it's a PDF download, and same thing with the free chapters. You just go in, you pull it down, and then it's yours. Yeah.
Hey everybody, Jess here. What if I could help your company find over $100,000 in hidden revenue streams in less than an hour without spending an extra dime on advertising or marketing? Reach out to me at cardzap.thebumpcard.me. Check out the video on 5 steps to profit, and also reach out and we can have a conversation. Thank you. Oh, fantastic. That sounds like a good deal. So make sure everybody gets a copy. I'm more of an Audible guy these days. I just don't pick up the books as fast as I used to. I mean, you can see all the books behind me that I have.
That's right.
And I have read quite a few of them, but I still buy more than I have read. But I've seems to have transitioned a lot to audiobook in the last maybe 2-3 years here. So, but now we're not driving quite as much, so I have to, around the house doing stuff, I can listen and stuff. But so tell me a little bit about. I saw on your profile picture on LinkedIn that you were in a picture with Tony Robbins and a bunch of other folks, and look, I think you had told me you were at some event or something.
Yeah, it was really crazy. That particular picture was just, it was surreal. So what happened is that I had covered, this was back when I was writing for Inc. I had written a couple articles about his book, The Unshakable. And prior to that, I'd had a sit-down interview with him about his Netflix special, I'm Not Your Guru. And so that was really cool. So I had a good hour and a half speaking with him and Joe Berlinger, who was the director, amazing guy. He did a lot of great movies, and it was fantastic to speak with both of them. So on this particular case, I had already written the article about Unshakable after writing about Money, Master the Game, and really loved the content. I mean, truly, I've read a number of financial books in my lifetime, and this one was the easiest to read. There's some great financial books out there, but if you're not an economist or you don't have a good financial background, sometimes you get lost trying to read all the great wisdom. What Tony Robbins did is he actually had interviewed 50 of the richest people that he had direct access to, including Sir Richard Branson, including John Bogle, and so many of these other just profound billionaires. And all of them, he said, if you could not give any money to your children, but you could only give them advice, what would you tell them? What a great question, right? So he went through all that. So I did all this work, and then I went on vacation with my family, and I took my kids down to Costa Rica. We went whitewater rafting, had a great time. And during the time I was in Costa Rica, I got a call from Tony Robbins' publicist saying, hey, are you going to be back in New York on Tuesday? And I said, sure, why? He goes, because Tony Robbins would love for you to be there when he rings the NASDAQ opening bell. And I was like, what? So it was
Wow.
insane. So I'm sitting there as he rings the NASDAQ opening bell. And the only way you can ring the NASDAQ opening bell is if you actually take your company public, or you are doing a massive charitable event. And that's exactly what this book was, tied into a charitable event, because most of almost all the proceeds, I think, went to Feed America. So he had fed, he's on a path to feed 1 billion people through these types of charitable contributions, including the proceeds from his book. And so he was ringing the NASDAQ opening bell. I got a chance to speak with him, and then we had the picture outside with Arianna Huffington and just Ajay Gupta, some of the crazy ass billionaires out there that he's connected to, and me, which is like, so one of these kids is not like the other. It was a lot of fun. It was fantastic. I loved it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow, what a great opportunity there. So
It really was.
that's good. So so as somebody is growing their business and really moving on, is there some good tips to kind of just fine tune things that you found that really makes a massive difference for a lot of people in your years of training people?
Yeah, I will say that the thing for me is, I can't emphasize enough my grandfather's wisdom, which was measure twice, cut once. He was a carpenter, and I took that carpentry insight into business. And measure twice, cut once really means that before you spend a bunch of money on anything, really make sure you know what you're up to and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs who just dive in and try to get in there and sort of and take bold action, which I'm all for. I love swift and bold action. But if you really haven't taken the time to think about what the outcomes are, or even how would you know if you are successful, what ends up happening is we start to flounder. We sort of go around and we sort of, spend a lot of time and money on things that don't really prove out to be successful. So what I found to really work is really get clear on the needs of your client. And I do that usually by having conversations with them. So if you're B2B, it's a lot easier than B2C. But on the B2B side, really get crisp. What is it your client needs? Be very clear about it. And if anything, you might feel like you're being a little redundant by asking as many questions and probing. But once you get there and you have absolute clarity on the need, then it's so much easier to execute. So once you've measured twice, then you have confidence in your ability to execute. You know exactly what things should cost and how to do them and all the work that gets done. That is where I've seen so much efficiency in this kind of work as we grow.
Okay. Yeah, that's great advice. I think I'm kind of one of those folks you were talking about. I tend to, I see something, a shiny object, and I'm all over it like
Squirrel.
Yes, exactly. Moth on a light bulb or something. But
and you're not alone. I mean, that's exactly it. Especially when you think about the internet age. As soon as I think something, I can Google it, and as soon as I can Google it, I can buy it. And so within 5 minutes, I've made a purchase. Now, 5 minutes ago, that wasn't even a thought. Like, that's crazy to me, right?
Yes.
So this is what happens with entrepreneurs, is we just decide, like, okay, I'm not interested in going forward with QuickBooks. Oh, I should check out FreshBooks. Okay, I'm now a customer of FreshBooks. And like, it's that fast. And we haven't done our due diligence. We haven't checked things out. So I think that's what I mean by measure twice, cut once. Is great to do the research, but when you take these massive actions quickly like that, and you really haven't built out your plan, you tend to be in reaction. And so the key there is to really design the outcomes you want to see in your business, as opposed to reacting to the opportunities that show up in front of you. Yeah.
But the pop-up said I was going to save 50% if I act within 30 minutes. So I had to make a decision.
That's right. Exactly right. They're effective. Hey, I mean, lead pages has exploded. I mean, there's reasons those ClickFunnels continue to be successful.
Yeah, they work.
It is, but I think but who do they work for? That's the question, right? So as the client on the other side of this, I want to make sure that I've really done my due diligence, and I'm going to let go of that need to buy in 30 minutes, so that I can actually ensure that I've like crossed my T's and dotted my I's to really make sure it's a good investment, that it's going to get an expected return.
Yeah. So, I had a really good one. Now
I'm sorry,
but no, you're good. That was amazing stuff you just went through. I was just really, really into that. So, it was LinkedIn. I was going to ask you about. I know you use LinkedIn quite a bit, and obviously, I do a lot of LinkedIn training. It's kind of my sure, whatever you want to call it. So, what's your like maybe like a success story or something that's come through LinkedIn? And a lot of people are like, well, is it really worth it? Or,
Oh, totally.
oh,
Look, I would say that like there's so many aspects of my business that have been grown by LinkedIn, and even the free versions. So I'm going to put Sales Navigator aside for a second. So you
sure.
got the power tools that are amazing. Just identifying like who it is. I know who my ideal customer is. I'm going to go after them. I want to say, okay, here's someone that I want to connect with. I have built up a network of over 6,500 contacts. And don't get me wrong, I am not in any way, shape, or form leveraging that to the level it could be, for sure. But what I find is the idea of being able to make a connection, make an introduction, offer something of value, not spam, not adding you to my newsletter. I'm not asking you to do something along those lines. I'm saying, hey, I thought of you. There's something specific that I want to share with you. Let's connect. I'll tell you a great example that just happened to me was a gentleman who was trying to court me for my old company, or TradePoint, for NetSuite. He connected with me on LinkedIn, but the way he connected me on LinkedIn was he said, did you get the mug I sent you? Now, I happened to be on vacation, so this would have worked a lot better if he'd known that I wasn't on vacation. But how do you know these things, right?
Right.
But what he had done is he'd found on my LinkedIn profile that I went to Salem State College. He went there, got a super nice, beautiful mug of my college, sent
Wow.
it to me with a note, and handwritten note saying, hey, I'm really excited to speak to you, and I'd love 15 minutes of your time. Now, how do you say no to that? Like for real, like it's like,
Right.
even though I didn't need that suite, it wasn't the thing that I was interested in, I still called him back. I connected with him. We had a conversation. I shared with him that, this would have been great a few years back, and, we missed our window of opportunity there. But in that case, it was such a thoughtful gesture. It was really hard for me to just blow someone off like that.
Yeah.
As opposed to, hey, we've got web developers for $14 an hour. We offshore everything. Come talk to me. I get 100 of those a day. I don't care, right? It just doesn't matter, right? So for me, it's like, how are you being thoughtful? How are you connecting? And I've done it as simple as, free coaching sessions. I've given people copies of my book. I have offered them to come to one of my workshops. It might be $200-300, and I'll give it away for free, right? I'll do some of those types of things. And all of those things add massive value first.
Yeah.
So for me, that has been my way in. Every time I've ever been successful on LinkedIn, I've really spent the time up front. I don't make a massive outreach. I look at my handful of maybe 10, 20 people that I really want to connect with, be thoughtful about who it is that I want to connect with. And then I really make it about them and the value that I would like to give to them with no strings attached. And inevitably, that always works in my favor. And even if I don't get business from them, we start to create a real authentic relationship, which 9 times out of 10 is more valuable than just getting a one-off piece of business anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. I talk a lot about, building relationships and building rapport and finding areas of commonality that you can, reach out to. Like, one of the biggest ones is just like, if there's like a charity that you're very involved.
Yes.
If you can reach out talking about the charity and not talking about business, or, if somebody likes fly fishing, talk about fly fishing. It's all about what their interest is, what their desires, what their wants, what their goals are, and then focusing on that and reaching out with that vein of helping them in that area, with no, getting anything in return. It just makes a huge difference. It's just, I think people can feel the authenticity of you just trying to get to know them as a person. Obviously they know that at some point you want to talk business. I mean, it's kind of what LinkedIn's all about, but if you can, be thoughtful about it, reach out, and, got to talk to a billionaire just through the chat, but I guess, but because we talked about his charity and how it was military charity, and I knew another guy that had a nonprofit military, and so I was basically just trying to introduce them together. I said, hey, I got this other guy that does a charity similar to yours. Can we have you introduce? And then I get the opportunity to be the middle guy that kind of gets to talk to both.
It's beautiful. What that's part of the adding value is what you just shared there too, which I love, is I am constantly looking at who can I connect in my own network to, just because I know they're the right people to be having conversations. So, hey, this person runs a mobile company. This other person is looking for support in some of the technology backend that they're doing, right? Connect the dots, because they're two trusted people in my network, and making those connections and introductions are so much more valuable than an individual reaching out on their own. And so if I can make that connection, then I'm also adding credibility to my network, and it becomes more valuable to be connected with me because of the other people that I can connect you with. And I find that that's one of the most invaluable things of LinkedIn, is that we're making the world smaller here. We're helping each other. And I used to spend a lot of time early in my business career in a place of scarcity. Like, oh, these are my contacts. Like, I'm not going to share my contacts. Like, I worked really hard for them, right? And now I'm in a complete other place. I'm in abundance. It's like, half these people, I need an excuse to talk to them. I mean, what the hell? 6,500 contacts? Like, that's just absurd. Like, I can't possibly keep those people engaged. It doesn't matter how many articles I write or what I do. They're not seeing me. So if I were to say, hey, I thought about you today, and here's someone that I think you should speak to, and here's why, now I just added value to 2 people in my network, and I don't have to be part of it. I just wanted to connect 2 people. That's the value of really being in abundance, and it's totally shifted my mindset in LinkedIn.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing, is introducing 2 people together that have common things, and just being the middle person and just saying, hey, meet this person. No, and then it's just kind of like, they just feel like, wow, like a week after they make that conversation and they have a good conversation, they're calling you going, hey, thank you, man, this was great. And then all of a sudden now you have a conversation where you're going, well, how is there any other people I can help you with? And then they're like, well, how can I help you?
Yes.
And then there's this just magic that happens. And I know one of the people I worked with is like 4 deep, in referrals that way. Was one of my best clients, and has referred me several other clients, and is now my best referral partner. But it was all through, one person who moved away from Minnesota that I happened to meet, but didn't even meet him in person. I just met him on LinkedIn, but they were in Minnesota. And then they met me to somebody in Florida that met me somebody in California. And it was just kind of this crazy, little thing. But I can't tell you how many times, where like there's a New York Times bestselling author that invited me to go do a whiskey tasting with him, and 1 state away, and it was like a 4-hour drive or something. So I went and hung out for the day, kind of like you did with Tony Robbins there, kind of the same thing. But it's just amazing how you can do that with LinkedIn. But
and just adding value to me constantly. It's like, so one of the things that was such a great way when I started my coaching business was people I actually knew, like not random people that I was reaching out to, like, hey, I want to connect with you, but people that I actually knew, and in a different context, just saying, hey, listen, when you and I are working together in this capacity, I really enjoyed this, and I do this about our working relationship. Now I've shifted my career. Now I'm focusing on as an executive coach. Do you know anyone that would benefit from a 1-hour free coaching session with me? Now, notice I didn't say, do you want one? Yeah. I mean, I was very clear about that, because, I don't want them to think, oh, you need coaching. Because that's the thing that I think anytime that it's like, oh, geez, it's like, no one needs coaching. It's definitely the best people in the world have coaches, but no one needs it. One needs a coach. Right. So when I'm thinking about that was, do you know anyone that could benefit from a 1-hour coaching session with me? I got referrals, and some of the times they said I could use it, right? Which is great. So I didn't imply anything. I didn't impose anything. And it was, especially early on, it was the best way to build my practice, because I got great experience giving away free sessions. I know that I added value to all those free people that I talked to that I never got a dime from. It didn't matter, because I was building my own muscle on how to be a great coach. At the same time, they were constantly referring me to other people that needed those same services. And it was a fantastic way. And I mean, it was such a rapid fire growth. And I just can't imagine, without LinkedIn, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere with that,
Yeah, it is a pretty awesome platform. So, well, good. Well, I suppose we should probably let you get on with your day. But man, I've had a really good conversation there. I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm sure a lot of people listening will get some good value out of that. And now you had some sort of big launch or something coming up on the 3rd?
Yeah, so here's what's happening. So 3rulesofmarriage.com, that's where you can go to find all the information about my book. On September 3rd, we're doing a huge push. I'm actually going through the process of building a Amazon best-selling book. And what's great, when I say building the process, you cannot do such a thing in New York Times. Like for New York Times bestseller, it's such a massive, massive undertaking. Unless you're like already a best-selling author, it's like, it's really difficult to manufacture that. But when it comes to Amazon, there's actually a lot of really great techniques because of the data and the algorithms and all the things you have access to. You can actually create your own bestseller. And so I've spent the last 6 months studying all this stuff. And so the big ta-da is on September 3rd from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., very specific time frame. We're dropping the price of our ebook from $10 to $3, so $2.99, right? And the reason we're doing that is we're actually going to push and get over 100 sales in the various different categories, which will make sure that it is a best-selling book. And my goal is to get as close to 200, so I'll have all the categories across the board, but it's happening all within that same exact hour. So we're promoting the hell out of this and giving away. And during that time, we'll be giving away free Audible copies. So when people purchase it, we're randomly selecting people who purchase there to get the free Audible version. We'll be sending off hard copies as well. So we're going to make a big deal about all of this stuff. So if any of your listeners are interested, it's only another week or two away. If they want to get this for the $3.99 price point, come in on September 3rd between 11 and 12, and they'll have a chance to win other stuff as well. We'll be giving away during that time.
Very cool. Yeah, I find that one of the biggest things that I found is you got to get reviews within, when that's what your promotional help with.
Yes.
Reviews. But if you can get above it's like 20 to 30 reviews, it seems like you have a sustained selling for quite a while. Whereas if you're below that, you kind of does this big spike and then it drops down.
That's right.
So I think what you're doing is absolutely exactly right. So anyway, it's what you're doing is brilliant, and so I definitely have to give you kudos for figuring out the tricks of that trade, because if you don't know what you're doing, it's almost impossible to even get an Amazon bestseller. But it's actually not as hard as you think if you figure out how to focus the marketing stuff.
Jess, it's like anything. It's tenacity, right? It's really going through the grind, taking all the steps, making sure every T is crossed and every I is dotted. I'll tell you what's really frustrating for me is that I did this book on Audible as well as the printed versions and the digital version. And the thing about Amazon is, I've got 6 reviews now, or 7, something like that. I'm pushing my way up. I'm trying to get 10 reviews before we do the actual official launch on the 3rd. But what's interesting is now I'm restarting all that over on Audible, because Audible was just released and those reviews don't come over. So I got to have 10 separate Audible reviews. So if anyone wants to review the book, they can reach out to me. I actually have a review code, and I'll give any of your listeners who would like to get a free Audible version of my book, I will happily send them one, as long as they promise to give a review. I don't care if it's a good review, but I need a review, because here's the thing, I need 10 honest reviews up on Audible. And so the first 10 people that come out and say, hey, I'll give you a review, great, I'll give them the book for free so that they have a chance to do that. So
all right, well, I'll be getting a code, I hope.
Yes, of course. If you give me a review, I promise I'll give you a code. That's how it works.
I'd be happy to do that for you. So
great, Jess.
Thing. So anyway, great having you today. Again, give them your website one more time.
Yep, 3rulesofmarriage.com, THREE, rulesofmarriage.com. And I'm personally Bill at billcarmody.com. It's my email address, and my website's billcarmody.com. Yeah.
Perfect.
Great.
Thanks again, and we'll be in touch. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me on your show. Appreciate it, Jess.